Hello and welcome. So it looks like Emil, the lead writer for Bethesda, has been working for Bethesda since Blood Moon. He has responded to some players' criticism on Facebook, and I'm going to go ahead and bring that to you in its fullest context. That way you have a full picture of what is going on before others start reporting it and skewing the facts. So, hope you're on for a ride here. I will let you know that the back and forth going on between Emil and critics is ongoing. I'll let you know the Facebook group that it is taking place. I'll let you know at the end of this video, but let's go ahead and get into it, and I will share the original post that he responded to, and we will just go from there. Original post. This is Emil Pagliarulo, the lead writer for Bethesda. I highly encourage people to watch his interviews. I believe it might be time for Bethesda to replace him. He has openly expressed disinterest in taking time to write quality story as far back as the release of Fallout 4. Pretty much in his opinion, cause some gamers will ignore the story. He doesn't believe it's worth writing overall better stories. Even if you enjoy the writing in Starfield, I think we can all agree a lead writer that doesn't believe he should be trying to make better stories is a problem. In his own words, when it comes to making new stories, this is how he feels. Keep it simple, stupid. He is happy giving the bare minimum. So just to add a little bit of details, when he says interview, he is referring to a storytelling conference that Emil attended and did a presentation at. That is where he is getting this all from. We're going to go ahead and go to the response that Emil provided him. Hi, redacted. Well, I generally expect anything when looking at the posts in this group, which I am a member of, but a big photo of my face isn't generally one of them. I would also encourage people to watch any interviews I've done. Hopefully, by doing so, they will realize that I have never and would never say that stories don't matter, or that designers/writers shouldn't try to write the best story they could. That's nuts. Stories are the foundation of Bethesda games. I've explained this before, but nobody seems to know or care. Lol. It's much easier to take someone's words, twist them out of context, and then spread them around like they're fact. And hey, it's on the internet, so it must be true. Anyone who knows me understands how seriously I take my role at Bethesda and how much I love the stories we're able to tell. We're going to go back to the original poster because he is going to respond back to Emil, and we'll cover that now. Emil, while I absolutely appreciate the work you have done in the past, as a fan, I honestly don't get the impression you care about trying to give us better writing and stories. A lot of us feel like the writing is going downhill. So far, your responses have not felt encouraging either. You say want to deliver the best stories, but that's not what we are getting. Starfield, everything feels so predictable and watered down. There's no edge to anything. So Emil at this point is going to respond back to the original poster again, and we're going to go ahead and read that one out, and then we're going to take a little bit of break and read some other responses, because Emil was responding to a lot of different people. There was several people kind of piling in there with a lot of the same talking points, mostly stemming from that games conference presentation he did. I'm going to link that in the description so you can watch it as well, but let's get into Emil's response. Redacted. Folks are going to have their own opinions, and that's cool. Clearly you have an issue with the stories in Bethesda's games, and the perception that they are going down in quality. I don't think anything I say in a Facebook thread is going to dissuade you. It's also not my place to. You're totally entitled to your opinion. At the end of the day, I'm just one dude with a great job who loves interacting with fans. I don't write everything myself, and I certainly don't run the studio. But I do read, review, and try to assist with the stories our designers write, and I'll go to bat for all of them until my last breath. So Emil is making a very good point here. He is the lead writer. He's in charge of a team of writers, so he's not solely responsible for every little bit of dialogue that is here, but he does, direct the development teams. So we're going to see a response from the original poster again. He's going to kind of come back and respond again here, and I'm going to go ahead and read that now. Emil, you definitely got my respect for taking the time to reply. Thank you for that. All I can say is get that spark back, 'cause we love the work you have done in the past, and we can see potential in the current writing, but it's like you lost the drive to take that step further. So at this point, when I was following the post, it disappeared. I initially thought it either got killed by the moderators of the group or it got deleted by the original poster. I was actually incorrect. The original poster edited the post, and I guess while he was editing it, I was not able to access it, but I'm going to go ahead and read the edit he added to the post. Update. Respect for Emil for replying and taking the time to respond. While my opinion is still the same, I do have more hope they will take our criticisms seriously. To Emil, thank you for taking the time for the small exchange and not just dismissing me as a simple hater. I'm not going to read the rest because it's the same as the original post. So the next couple posts were from someone that grabbed screenshots of them in the group. I can't find them anymore in the comment section, so I think they may have been deleted. It is from someone that watched the interview. I don't know if they had the best context to be watching that interview in, but I'm going to go ahead and it's only a partial screenshot of their statement. The person that did provide this to me didn't get the full response. I apologize for that, but we'll go through it. Emil, conveying this as neutrally as humanly possible. I know tone doesn't translate, so please know I am not saying this with a harsh attitude. I definitely did just listen to your interview where keep it simple stupid was discussed, and I just passed the part where you said that great games are played, not made, and you're right, that it's not a screenplay or a novel, but then you say that you, the writing team are going to write the next great American novel, the next great game, and you're going to hand this novel to the readers, gamers, and they're going to tear out all the pages and make paper airplanes of them, and not see the story. So this is a very common talking point from people who watched that presentation about storytelling. But we're going to go ahead and look at Emil's response. This one, the screenshot captured the full response, so we don't have a cutoff, but she did go into, or that poster did go into some additional grievances as well, and it'll be covered in Emil's response. Redacted. Hey, redacted. It seems the thing that keeps getting pointed to as evidence that I don't care about stories is a talk I did several years ago. I think context here is important, so it might help if I provide it. It was literally the first speaking gig I ever did, so I was pretty nervous. It was also a talk very specifically meant for game development students. I was addressing a very specific audience. The paper airplanes comment was meant to illustrate that as game developer, you have to be okay with players not engaging in your stories because you're making a video game and empowering your players to play it any way they want, even if it's the best story you've ever written, even if it's the main quest of your game. The point was to respect the medium of video games. It wasn't at all a way of saying you shouldn't care about the stories you're writing. I have never thought that, and would never want anyone to think I did. So at this point, I have noticed that the original poster made a second post in the group addressing this post, and I am going to go ahead and share that one with you as well. After Emil replied to my last post, I have this to say to everyone who says Bethesda doesn't see our complaints on here. In your face. They definitely see them. Actually gives me hope knowing they are listening to us in this group specifically. So this next one is going to be Emil's response to someone else. I cannot find the other post. I didn't see it in my screenshots either. I must have missed it. I do apologize for it, but I can give you the basic synopsis. The person was asking specific questions about certain storyline decisions pertaining to the Crimson Fleet quest line. Basically, the poster wanted to know why they didn't go with a little bit more grittier feel with the Crimson Fleet, more similar to Raiders from like from the Fallout series. And this is going to be Emil's response to this. Redacted. Hey, redacted. I am going to have to respectfully decline to answer this. Once I open the Pandora's box of answering specific content questions, it kind of never ends. And that's not why I'm here. This is my personal Facebook account, where I generally come to chill and get away from work stuff. I also have something of a track record at this point of what I think is innocently interacting with fans, only to have those interactions show up as clickbait gaming news articles. Lesson learned. And I don't need that stress in my life, so I hope you can understand, but I'll leave you with this. Whatever that or any other questline ends up being is the result of several factors, the owning designer's concept, vision, and skills, that questline's place in the game as a whole, the overall schedule, and how much time folks had to work on stuff, tech issues during development, art resources available, and of course, in the case of Starfield specifically, the fact that in the middle of development, almost overnight, and I mean that literally, we had to completely change the way we work and communicate thanks to a global pandemic. So that last bit it's very insightful to the game development process, and kind of explains the complexity of story writing within a game because of development issues and staffing issues and possible defects that might pop up that might stop them in their tracks from writing the story that they want to write. So it's a little bit more complex of an issue to just blame the writing, because potentially things could come up that derail them from being able to write the story that they want to write. Like they might not be able to get the necessary man hours to maybe do like necessary art design to kind of support storylines with more visual storytelling, opposed to simple dialogue writing. But we'll go ahead and take a look at another little back and forth between the person that posed this question to Emil and Emil's response back to him. Poster number 3. Emil, I apologize. You are absolutely right. I did not take into consideration this was your personal account, nor did I think about the potential for these clickbaiting articles to take and twist whatever you may say to their benefit. I appreciate you saying anything at all, and I will not ask about things like that in the future. I wish you a wonderful and prosperous day, week, month, ... Emil, you too, man. So for me, this was kind of nice to see someone that had questions and concerns about particular narratives kind of getting some satisfactory answers, even though that they were not specific, and he seemed content with the replies he got. And I was pretty content with Emil's reply as well, even though it was maybe not pointing out specific issues of why they didn't go a particular way with the Crimson Fleet questline. It did kind of allude to a lot of the potential complications that they could have in writing the story that they want to write. But let's get into another poster's question. So this one is a little bit heated, and Emil has a much longer response, and it's going to be a little bit more in depth. Emil, oh yeah, and one more thing while you're here. KISS doesn't belong in programming or game developing. Coding, sure, but even then it's hard. Don't come on here to defend yourself and straight up lie or twist your own words. You said what you said. I could care less that you took the time to reply. You're not a god, lol. Anyone can use social media, it's not hard. And you taking the time to look and reply is cool, but you're not earning any respect from me for it. You quite literally stated you're dumbing down the writing in your games. Then come on here and tell us we must hate Bethesda stories because we say you're doing that. Own what you're doing, and you'll get some respect from me. Otherwise, you're just on here lying through your keyboard. Okay, so Emil's response to this poster is quite lengthy, so you might want to grab a drink. I'm going to be reading for quite some time. I'll put it up on screen. I hope the font is not too small to read for you guys. And I had to break it up into 2 screenshots because it's rather large and lengthy. But I will provide that to you. Redacted. You seem pretty heated about this issue, and super angry towards me specifically, and I'll be honest and say I'm not entirely sure why. I never in a million years thought or implied I was a god. I also haven't lied, and I haven't responded to folks in any kind of attempt to earn respect. That's not exactly something I can control over the internet. I simply saw some disinformation and wanted to correct it, which I think is pretty common. If you see your face plastered on social media as being the perceived cause of something folks don't like, and as someone who considers himself a fairly normal person with a really cool job, it's really hard for me to see myself as a public person. I'll own everything I ever said. Elsewhere in this thread, I provided what was probably some useful context, but it probably got buried, so I'll repeat it here. Several years ago, I did a talk in Copenhagen. It was the first public speaking gig I had ever done in my capacity as a Bethesda developer, and I was pretty nervous, but I practiced a lot. I knew my audience, and I felt pretty good about the information I could impact. This was a talk aimed specifically for young game development students, college kids really. In fact, I also went to the local college and spoke to the students there. You feel that the kiss analogy doesn't belong in game development. We'll have to disagree, but I think the meaning of that statement has gotten misconstrued over the years. In my capacity as lead and then later director, I've had to work with dozens of designers as they craft their quest lines, and one of their repeating issues that designers/writers have is they can write too much. Sometimes their narratives can become overly complicated, and I mean overly complicated, as in tough to follow or parse, not overly complicated as in complex or rich. Basically, you have to be a good self-editor. Shakespeare wrote, "Breviary is the soul of wit," around the year 1600, so this isn't exactly a new concept. But it was a good reminder for students that just because something is long or complex doesn't necessarily mean it's good. It was meant to be a light-hearted point. I also made the comment about players taking a game story and turning it into paper airplane. Again, a light-hearted anecdote for a video game dev students, that even if they write what they or anyone would consider a masterful story, if you're making a giant open-ended game like Skyrim or Fallout 4, where you're providing the player with tons of gameplay options and opportunities, you have to understand that players might not want to engage with that story. It was about respecting the medium of video games. When you sit down to read a novel, you're settling in to passively let the story come to you. But in a giant video game, which in a lot of ways is a weird life simulation. The player is an active participant in the world, and they can do what they want, even if that means blowing off the main quest and doing other stuff. Hence the paper airplane comment. For the record, I also mentioned the old adage of write what you know, again, presenting basics to students. And that has also gotten misconstrued as me saying you should never be creative or write about things you don't know, which again, not the message I meant to impart. So such. In the first speaking gig I ever did I maybe oversimplify things too much? Totally possible. Hindsight is always 20/20. But I certainly didn't get that sense when I actually gave the speech. The students, young devs, seemed to understand where I was coming from, and that was even more apparent when I spoke with them afterwards. It was only years later, when the talk started circulating around the internet, that some folks jumped on it as Bethesda dev is dumb and says stories don't matter. Anyway, I appreciate the chance to set the record straight. Whether or not you believe me or think I'm totally full of redacted is pretty much out of my control. So let me hear what you think. If you could comment down below, did that satisfy your questions and concerns about that game development presentation he did many years ago, or are you still concerned that Emil is intentionally dumbing down stories and only writes about things he actually has experiences with? Let me know what you think. But we do have one last thing I do want to share with you at the very end of it. I will say the poster that posed that original statement, or not the original, but the one that Emil had the long response to, he did reply back. I am not going to read that because I don't want to be censored on YouTube. But he did not accept that response. So I'm kind of curious if you accept that response and if it may have changed your mind or cleared up things on that presentation he did. But I do have one last exchange to share. It's a rather short one between the original poster and Emil, and it came at the very end of everything here. Emil, I'm sure my post kinda added to that stress, lol. Seriously though, sorry for how I went about it. Saw another post plus a few comments that put some perspective on how I went about my post. You're still a person at the end of the day, and you are not the only writer either. It's unfair for me and other people to single you out like this. Redacted. I appreciate that. Redacted, thank you. I totally get that at the end of the day your comment comes from a place of passion and love of games, and I would never fault someone for that. Well, I don't think they came to a full agreement on stuff. I think a lot of the misinformation was cleared up by Emil in the original poster's mind. They might not agree over the quality of writing right now, but I think it was probably a good thing that Emil did the interaction, and you know what? It turned out pretty well in my opinion. It's still ongoing. I'm going to, go ahead and put up the group in a moment here, and just so you can see it and you can join if you want. I actually know that Emil is following several Facebook groups that are related to Starfield. He just happened to respond in this one. Now, he's never posted in them, but I know he is actively observing them. So this is the group that he was responding in. That post is still up. As of like 5 hours ago, he was still responding. I haven't checked back because I've been editing up this video and editing up the screenshots and stuff. He very well could still be responding in there if you wanted to catch it, but I am going to warn you, there is like 100,000 people in this group, and it is very much player versus player kind of discussion going on, which is kind of a good thing in my opinion, because Emil is seeing a lot of the back and forth discussions. I guess he's also seeing the resurgence of this misinformation going around about the presentation he did several years ago. But you know what? If you could let me know your opinion on that, I would appreciate it. Whether you think he's being genuine now, or do you still think that he is dumbing down stories and oversimplifying things. And this is kind of the reason why Bethesda's writing has gone downhill. Or if you don't think that Bethesda's writing's gone downhill, let me know. But I will say my opinion. I think the writing has gone downhill a little bit, but I think that was mainly due to the transition to voice acting. So I think the writing went downhill from Morrowind to Oblivion. I think we're basically at the same standard right now, and I think that's due to the man hours that are necessary for voice acting. They can't write nearly as much as they did back in Morrowind days. It's more than acceptable in my opinion, because it makes the game much more accessible to broader audiences. But I do appreciate you watching all the way to the end, and like always, please give me a like and subscribe. I do appreciate them, and have a good night. I know I will.